Welcome back, TCS TV viewers. Chris Nichols here from the camera store, and today we are going to play with the brand new Canon EOS 5D Mark IV, the latest in what is really a digital photography dynasty. This camera has been eagerly anticipated for many years, and we've got it today, and we're going to shoot in a very interesting scenario. As you can see from the interesting display behind us, we are shooting some weird stuff today. We're shooting Calgary's Beakerhead celebration, a mix of science, art, education, food, and so much more. I actually really like this technical display back here, and not just because I'm part Japanese. It should be an awesome shoot and a great test for the 5D Mark IV. So here we are at one of the events. This is basically just a giant sandbox, but I actually kind of want to get in there. It looks like fun. And I just want to take this time to say that Jordan and I are both going to use tools of convenience that can be found on the 5D Mark IV. So first off, he's shooting this entire episode on a 5D Mark IV in 4K, and he's doing it with the autofocus. No manual focus at all is what he's promised me. There might be some touch pulls or something like that. And I'm using the new auto ISO function on the 5D Mark IV because they fully customize it now. You can set all the shutter speeds that you want. You can change the range for video and stills. It's very nice, and Jordan always complains that I shoot on the same ISO throughout the videos anyways, so this should give us some variety. I'm normally not one to take pictures at playgrounds, but you know, that's why I brought my own daughter, so it's okay. Now, at first glance, the 5D Mark IV looks very much like the other 5D cameras, and it does have a very familiar design aesthetic to it, but we've got a few changes. Now, the remote cable is actually in the front here with a cover. That's a nice new change for it, so it doesn't take up the stuff on the side. And on the back, we've got the autofocus selector. We love this on the new Canon SLRs, and now we've got it here, and it really lets me quickly change my autofocusing point. Even in live view, I can switch back and forth between faces. We've also got a brand new little custom button here, and if I push this with my thumb and then turn the dial, I can activate a feature. The only thing I'm going to say about the camera, though, is Canon is kind of arbitrary in what you can and cannot customize to buttons, and that seems strange. I wish they would just give you free rein. If you're going to customize it, let us customize the whole thing. Otherwise, very traditional weight, very weather sealed, and even Play-Doh proof. Now, I should mention that the 5D Mark IV is lighter than the other 5D bodies. I mean, not like floating on a bed of air lighter, but it is noticeable. And of course, classic comfortable grip. And the other thing, of course, no pop-up flash. That's expected. 5Ds never have had that. But now we've got this plastic cover on top. Now this is housing the GPS and the Wi-Fi, and those are great additions just to get the 5D Mark IV up into, 2016. And of course, before you could buy Wi-Fi and GPS, but it was just ridiculously expensive. So this is a nice feature, and it makes this camera very, very connectable, like cameras have to be to compete nowadays. So as you can see behind me, this balloon is about to fly, but the lineup is crazy long, so I think we're going to skip that. And as you can also see, I tried to fly a kite, and I'm just no good at it, so we're going to skip that. I think this is a really good time to just let Jordan take over and talk about video. I'm going to take a break and deal with my current failure.
Hey guys, it's Jordan to talk about video on the 5D Mark IV. And I think everyone heard it the day that the 5D IV specs were announced, the collective cries from videographers the world over. Oh, it's got this crazy crop factor and it uses an outdated codec. And I mean, I wasn't surprised, and I don't know why so many people were, because Canon's made it very clear for a long time, if you take professional video seriously, they don't want you shooting it on EOS cameras. They want you on their EOS cinema cameras. So let's take a look at the Canon Mark IV for what it is and how it's going to work for journalists or casual video shooters, the people it's really designed for. Now, I think a lot of people are going to be using this camera in the 1080 record mode. First of all, because the file sizes are practical, but mostly because the 1080 quality is actually really excellent. We all remember the 5D Mark III was really quite soft, didn't have a lot of image issues, but it was a notoriously soft camera. The 5D Mark IV, the image is sharp at 24 and 30, and it also has a very sharp 60 frame per second mode too. Now, it does give you 120 frame recording, but it's 720p. I mean, we said on the 1DX2 that it was not terribly good. This is even worse, so I really consider it kind of a novelty effect, or, you know, if you really want to capture that perfect moment of Chris's failure. Now, the Canon 5D Mark IV has Canon's dual pixel autofocus, which is one of my favorite things Canon does. It really sets them apart from anything else. It worked amazingly well on the 80D, the 1DX2, and this is absolutely no exception here. You can see it's tracking me wonderfully, and it works in all frame rates except for 120 frame recording, but like I mentioned, the 120 recording is nothing to write home about. I do wish they'd put a rotating screen on this. You need to be able to see the display when you're working with the touch autofocus. Losing that is a huge hindrance. I can't see why we can't have a pro body with a flippy screen. So yeah, I do think that the 5D Mark IV is capable for casual video shooting, journalism, stuff like that. If you're a pro though, it's really frustrating. We have no assist tools, waveforms, peaking, zebra, stuff like that. And on top of that, I mean, I've touched on it, but the 4K codec is ludicrous. Motion JPEG takes up tons of space, very inefficient. It would be like a still camera that only shoots TIFF. On top of that, the crop factor is a real problem. You'll have to change lenses if you're working with primes to reframe from stills to video. We've been using the Sigma 1835 all day because we're basically dealing with a 1.6 crop factor. It's a lot of limitations and it is a huge disappointment, but remember, 5D Mark IV, it's not made for professional video users.
All right, guys, so the light's dropping pretty quick here, and we're gonna head into this kind of little music venue back here for Beakerhead. It's pretty loud in there, but we're gonna do our low light test in there because we really want to see how this camera handles autofocusing in low light and what its high ISO performance is like. So let's go ahead in there and see what we can get. All right, so I really want to talk about autofocus next, and I wanted to wait till I got into a dark situation to test it out there as well because it's much improved. Now, I've been shooting all day long and night here now, and it's doing an amazing job. 5D Mark IV is very reminiscent of the 1DX Mark II, 61 points of focus, -3 EV amongst all the spots, and it's just hitting everywhere that I want it to go. So it's been very successful that way. The only thing I'm gonna say about it is you do have to customize it for the right situations. I'm using the spot mostly right now, which gives you an even tighter point than the standard single point area, but you gotta be able to switch back and forth to different modes to capture the right action. Now, when it comes to live view, of course, this is a big deal as well because the 5D Mark IV has the dual pixel AF, which is what Canon is now famous for, and rightfully so. It works fantastic. Some of the big benefits you're going to get with the live view, it's smooth, it's quite fast, and very accurate, and that's great. I mean, I'm shooting the 135 f2 a lot today, and it really gives me that accuracy that I need, even though I've got such thin depth of field. Now, it's good down to -4, but I am going to say this. Jordan and I are both finding this for stills and video. In dark areas like this, where everything starts to become a black shadow, it has a hard time picking things up, and we have been slipping and losing it a little bit. I'm finding the actual standard phase detect is working better, even though the live view is rated for lower EV. Now, one of the big changes in the 5D Mark IV is a brand new 30 megapixel sensor, and the image quality improvements to that denotes. And what I want to talk about first, because it's dark right now, is the high ISO performance. Now, keep in mind, I've been letting this thing go auto ISO all night. It's gone everywhere from 100 to 12,800. You know, again, what I'm finding is their JPEGs still have that typical Canon softness. Nikon and Pentax are still going to deliver better ISO performance in RAW and JPEG. I mean, Canon's catching up, but they're still not leading the pack here. But it's a good improvement, and they needed it in these sensors. Now, of course, dynamic range is the thing that we really wanted because Canon's been having a hard time with that. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. It has improved dramatically, but it's still not up to the competition. Again, this is so strange with Canon having so much time, but still, I am pleased that we can now pull more out of the shadows. It is a nice improvement. The 5D Mark III didn't set the bar very high, though. And lastly, I want to talk about resolution, which is probably the most minor of the improvements in the sensor. You know, we're jumping up to a modest 30 megapixels, and I think that's a nice number. It's given us a good kick over the 24 megapixel competition on the market, and it's still giving us good sharpness. That being said, though, the 5D Mark IV still has an aliasing filter. You're not going to get that fine resolution. I don't know if that's because they don't have the technology or they just don't want to hurt the 5DSR. I have no idea, but I still think cameras like the D810 or the Sony A7R Mark II are going to give you a kick over this in resolution any day of the week. It's a nice improvement. Get good detail. I love the color. I love the look. Canon have always done a good job there, but it's the same old story. We're just getting close, but not anywhere to beating any of the other competitors on the market right now. Now guys, we're just about to set some on fire, which is going to be fun, but they're going to do it any minute, so I don't have long to talk about it, and I don't need long to talk about this next thing, and that's this kind of dual pixel AF RAW kind of thing that everybody's talking about on the 5D Mark IV, where it basically can separate the two images from the left looking and right looking diodes. I mean, basically, it sounds impressive on paper, but it doesn't do anything really that's going to be feasible in a shooting situation. Very slight bokeh changes, very slight focusing changes. I mean, you could do more with your AF micro adjust. I just don't think it's worth it for double the file size and having to think about that ahead of time to shoot with. You're not going to use it. Don't worry about it. Now let's go start something on fire. All right, guys, so final word on the Canon EOS 5D Mark IV, and there's quite a bit that I want to say here. But first off, just, you know, I've been talking about positives and negatives, of course, and every camera is going to have them, but overall, the Canon EOS 5D Mark IV is an amazingly good workhorse platform. It's just the camera that you can rely on to do everything you want to do photographically day in, day out. And you know, beyond that, they're really trying to make this a very all-in-one hybrid kind of camera. Something that can tackle video, something that can tackle stills. And of course, we've talked about the ins and outs of that. But overall, I think you're really going to like this if you're looking for a good, general-purpose, solid, professional SLR. Canon's definitely made a concerted effort to improve the image quality, dynamic range, and low-light performance of the 5D Mark IV. Handling is the same, and I mean, that makes sense because they want you to be very familiar with it as a Canon user. And, you know, things like the video being sharp now is nice. Things like the Wi-Fi and GPS, I think, are fantastic. The touchscreen's a great addition here as well. So we've got some really nice improvements that this camera line really did need to get up to 2016. But we do have some negatives as well, and some things are confusing. I don't know why the 200th of a second flash sync down from 250. That seems really, really strange. And on top of that as well, the lack of a rotating screen has been a real pain too. I mean, I found that when I was shooting low angle stuff, it would have been really nice, especially with dual hybrid pixel AF being such an important feature. And I know Jordan would have loved to have had it for the video capabilities as well. You know, on the subject of tilty screens, Jordan wants me to let everybody there know that he's actually very uncomfortable right now because this low angle means he's on his knees, and he'd love to be able to stand and just use the flippy screen. Why didn't they give Jordan a flippy screen? And you know, other things about the video kind of bug us too. You got to remember the 5D Mark II started this whole cinematic SLR trend, this whole industry. But by the time the 5D Mark III came out with its minor improvements, the competition was pretty stiff and it was starting to fall by the wayside. And of course, it's been years since that camera's been out. Now the 5D Mark IV comes out, and what do we get? 4K, but a very difficult and very unpractical 4K. I mean, I've literally seen Jordan switch out 4 64 gig SD cards. He's almost running out of space on the last one. I'm trying to be one take wonder nickels today, but you know, it's still hard to do that, and we're just having such a hell of a time running out of memory. He's gone through 3 batteries as well. It's really hard on the battery life. On top of that, he's been struggling with dynamic range. I mean, you know, even in 1080, where this camera does do a very good job, dynamic range is still not fantastic, and there's no flat profile. You know, you got to get a cinema SLR to get that. So, you know, we're missing out on that, and that's kind of disappointing. You know, on top of that too, the crop factor is 1.65. It's tight, and Canon in their infinite wisdom won't let you mount their EFS glass on here. So you can't even use some of that really nice glass with the crop factor, which means Jordan is using a Sigma 18-35 1.8 right now, which mounts beautifully, fits perfectly, and means that most Canon users are going to end up with non-Canon glass in front of these cameras. So, You know, I don't want to complain of the video too much. The dual pixel's great, the touchscreen's a nice change. You know, it's another improvement, but it could have been so much better. Oh man, I don't want to sound negative on top of this, but when we look at it versus the competition, well then you've got cameras like the A7R Mark II and the D810, which are going to give you sharper results, you know, better dynamic range, better low light performance, higher megapixel counts at a similar price point or even less, you know. If you look at something like a D750, which can do a lot of what this camera can do, or a D500, which has better dynamic range and very similar autofocusing and is better suited for wildlife, sports, and journalism, those cameras are nearly half the price. The 5D Mark IV is too expensive, and so in the end, where's this camera gonna go? Who is this camera for? No Nikon users, no Pentax users, not even crop Canon sensor users. This is for 5D Mark II and 5D Mark III users that want to get a better upgrade. And on a positive note, let me end it this way. It is a substantial upgrade. And on top of that, guys, don't get me wrong, I actually really loved using this camera because Canon do know how to make a fantastic, complete professional SLR package. It's just too little too late against competition, which has already been doing this or better for quite a long time. I hope you agree with me. I hope you don't fight me on this, but you are free and entitled to your opinion, so let us know. Check us out on Twitter, check our Instagram accounts, you know, comment on the files that you're going to see there. Comment below, let us know what you thought. Overall, a very powerful package, but when you stack it up with the competition, not so much. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much, guys.